Today I thought I would go ahead and talk about DAWs. I am actually making the decision in 2025 that I will be switching to Pro Tools. And I have been a Cakewalk user. It was actually called Sonar back in the day. I started using Sonar in 2009. Actually used that to learn how to record music on. Back then, it was a really good program, regularly updated. It had 2 synths on it that I really enjoyed using. Drop Zone and Zeta, well, it's spelled Z3TA. I really enjoyed working with those 2 synths. And, well, here's my thing about it. So, after the company got sold to Gibson, Gibson wound up filing for bankruptcy, and that was back when Gibson was going through all that trouble, and they demolished all those guitars and this and that. And the program was just not updated in that time, and it was eventually acquired by BandLab. When it came back under BandLab, I was already kind of, I don't know, I was like, well, I want to use Cakewalk, but I don't really like the fact that it's a software that's now owned by a foreign subsidiary. It's now owned by a company out of Singapore, which now also owns Reverb Nation. If you've used Reverb Nation lately, they really have not kept that one up either. The instrument suites, the string section, the drum instrument, the bass instrument, all that stuff actually used to be paid products under Cakewalk. They kind of gave us that for free for a long time, but they took away Zeta and some of the other stuff, and they really kind of cluttered up the screen, all these extra functions, and it seems like in some ways it became a little less user-friendly, at least ways in my opinion. Not to mention that the user experience has been actually kind of horrendous for the past year or so. It seems like every time I turn around, I'm having to reactivate Cakewalk and go through millions and millions of steps to reactivate it just so I can work on one project, and it's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating, and it's not just past year. There's been several times where I've had to uninstall and reinstall and blah 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 blah. For me, that just takes me out of the creative process. When I have to dick around with a program for 30 minutes or an hour before I can get to work on anything. The one thing that I will say is the TTS1. That's always been the thing that I go back to that's really fun about programming MIDI on Cakewalk. The program just has not really been kept up with over the past however many years since Gibson acquired Cakewalk. All the attention that BandLab has really been putting into seems like the community and some of their own apps. The thing that I'm having a problem with here is now with the new free tier, so to speak, you're going to be losing features that maybe most users don't use, but I use, like the Elastic Pro I actually use. It's an old production technique where you record a song at a slightly slower tempo and then speed it up afterwards whenever you're doing your post-processing. That's not going to be offered on the free tier, along with a few other features. I just question what value you're actually paying for at $150 at the bottom paid tier to use the new Sonar versus Avid Pro Tools at $100, which I know for a fact Avid has been keeping up with their products for the past 20 years. I learned how to do music notation using Sibelius, and they've kept that product around. They've maintained all their products and kept them up to date. To me, it just makes more sense to spend $100 to buy Avid Pro Tools. And I know the criticism that a lot of people are going to be, oh, Steve, the only reason why that Pro Tools is the industry standard is because somebody says it's the industry standard because people use it. Let's just make that clear. I know that if I program tracks on Avid Pro Tools, I can send it to an engineer and let them do mix down and mastering without having to do a whole lot of extra stuff on my end to send stems. If I were to take classes at Berkeley to learn how to use a DAW, they're going to be teaching Ableton Live. They're going to be teaching Pro Tools. You gotta use a little bit of common sense on some of this stuff. What's actually being maintained, what's actually being kept up to date, what's actually being kept relevant in the music space. And I just do not see it happening with Cakewalk. I mean, I hate to say it, but because I've been such a faithful user of Cakewalk for so long, but it's not like I've never used Pro Tools before. The user interface is similar. You know, there's a few differences. Some of the shortcuts are different. You know, that is a slight learning curve, but it's not such a steep learning curve that it can't be done. You want something that stays relevant within the overall market. You want something that stays up to date, and you want something that if you're collaborating with other musicians and other producers or engineers or what have you, you're working with a workstation that's being maintained and being kept up to date and has features. And I know that there's people there against like sampling and stuff. They've got the new Splice integration. They have Atmos, which is the whole new Dolby surround sound, mainly for like theaters and stuff. I mean, you're not going to need that unless writing for sync. And of course, if you're writing for sync, hopefully you're paying an engineer to do that kind of stuff. It just makes sense to me to stick with something that's actually being maintained and kept up to date. So I will be using Avid Pro Tools in 2025 from 2025 on. Alright, so that's my spiel for tonight. If you've got any opinions, drop them in the comment section below. If you think I'm full of it, hey, cool, it's a free country. Drop that in the comment section below too. Other than that, y'all have a good weekend. Take care.